I had a question specifically around permaculture and land and um, combining land and culture, and like what I came to like doing a lot of the work that I'm doing right now through permaculture and through land-based work. But after I found like an organizing community that was a little bit more like direct action oriented, like felt really weird doing a lot of that stuff because wasn't sure what aspects of it were appropriative. I was working with a lot of white people and also, yeah, people of color in my organizing community were like looking at me weird for it, and I think I like moved really far away from like the land-based stuff and moved very much into sort of rejecting it. And I've been kind of wondering what your both of your yeah, like how you've balanced the people and earth-based, like land-based work that you've been doing, and whether you also have struggled with that or not.
Yeah, I can speak to that, and then Christine, please chime in. It's a delicate balance, really. And one of the concepts in permaculture, interestingly enough, is dynamic balance, right? So this idea that you want to find a balance that's vibrant and dynamic. For me, what I try to do when I'm working with folks is to remind them, especially when it comes to people of African descent, like I really go to the cultural pieces of things and also the economic pieces of things. Like when it comes around a self determination, it requires land. Like there is no way we're going to be self-determined people without understanding how to steward land. Like that's really the fundamental concept. And for us as people of African descent, it's part of our liberation to reclaim a right relationship with the earth. So when we're out fighting battles and we're up against like things in the urban environment, I just try to ground ourselves in that. And so I've done some simple things, right, and I've done some more complicated things. Some of the direct action that we would do might involve, protecting a community garden, for example, right? But those spaces that you're talking about are very white, like food justice spaces and permaculture spaces. So we're trying to be intentional and creating something different. But one of the things that I do when I work with folks is I introduce this concept of libation, and I do that across culture and across race. But I always make sure to do it when I'm in the company of people of African descent. And libation is a cultural practice, and it's a cultural practice where we pour water and we acknowledge ancestors. And that's something that resonates with a lot of people, and it helps us understand wherever we're at, water and the connection between water and life. And again, when I was talking about land earlier, it's also water. Like land and water they go together for life. So I just try to root it really in culture and a reclamation of our culture, and to remind folks that the key to our liberation is the key to the liberation of our earth. Like our earth is suffering, and we're suffering for the same reasons our earth is suffering.
Yes, I can add a little bit to that. Um, so I put down in just two things, right? Um, it's funny. I came up in Filipino organizing, which if you organize with anybody outside the U.S., where I feel like it's organizing has been a little bit professionalized, there's actually no such thing as cultural organizing in the Philippines. There's just organizing. Um, and so, in when you're in Filipino circles anyway, is food is the way we connect culturally. Knowing where the food came from, being able to offer food and breaking bread is a really personal and community building thing for me. I remember I used to get butt hurt when people would be like would not take food from me, and I took it hella personal and realized finally that it was a cultural thing, because that's like a deep offering in a lot of cultures, when you're saying, hey, are you family? And then just on a hella real like tactical tip, a lot of the things we do at CSS is talk with folks about how to do creative actions, and we do these things called prefigurative actions. It's how do you build the vision of what you're trying to build on the site of contestation. So for instance, if you're contesting a piece of land, a public lands, so if I talk about that East 12 parcel land on the lake, I kind of haven't run this by people yet, but it's an idea, is how do you actually build on it or plant on it the future that you're trying to see, do it on the contested piece of land and force them on the question of what are they trying to put on there. Occupy the Farm's the same thing. The Giltrakt farm here in Albany that MG was critical in. It's like you actually farmed the land that Berkeley was going to sell to like a Whole Foods or some shit, you know, or Sprouts or whatever. So, and then we worked with groups that are like, they brought, you know, they literally put a daycare in their target's office. So they went to a legislative office and made it a daycare in the middle, you know, in the middle of the office and been like, this is what our people need. We're going to hold it right here. So how do you actually create the world that you're trying to build on a site of power, to contest for power? So we talk a lot about that. I'll stop there.